Greetings to you and welcome to this episode of Grace Podcast. I'm Timothy Muse. I'll be your host as we spend this time together today. It's a joy to be with you. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for making this podcast a part of your journey. And I want to thank you for being on the journey, for walking through this. It is a joy to be with you. It is a joy to be able to come alongside you and walk with you in this time and really lift you up and encourage you and hopefully give you a little nugget of wisdom here and there to, get you going and keep you moving along in the same direction and moving forward. The journey of healing certainly is not a linear journey. It's one that goes up and down, back and forth, more spirals and pitfalls. But in that, I'm happy that you're on this journey and I am blessed that you are allowing me to come alongside you. And so thank you for that. If this podcast is helpful, please put it out there. Put it out there on your social media feeds. I post on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and Facebook. If you follow me or the life coaching on any one of those feeds, you're going to see these podcasts. If you're on one of the listening platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music, then follow us. Give us a rating and review. Every positive rating and review tells the platform that people are listening. And it'll give you indications when a new episode comes out. And if you want to reach out to me directly, as always, GraceLifeCoaching.com. I would love to hear from you. I would love to interact with you. If I can help out in any way, please feel free to do so. GraceLifeCoaching.com is the website. So we have been moving through this time of what this season is telling us as we prepare for spring, as we look forward to spring. And I want to keep moving in that direction. I want to keep walking through that today and lift up some other things. We talked about, clearing out the old soil and the emotional waiting and wintering. And that's all good stuff. And it really helps us be in this time. Today, I want to talk about how we shift our mindset. How we move into a different mindset in this, how we move in a powerful shift that can make us prepared for this new season, that we can begin to prepare for this new season. And that is through a mindset of expectation, not wishful thinking, not denial, not blind optimism, but trained expectation. Because here's the truth that we want to dig into. Spring doesn't begin the day flowers appear. Spring begins the day the earth expects them. And your growth doesn't begin when results show up. It begins when your mindset shifts towards possibility. Today, I want to talk about that. Today, I want to dig into that. I want to dig into how expectation rewires your brain and why, unintentionally expect disappointment as adults. That's what many of us do. How pessimistic forecasting blocks growth and how to train your inner vision to anticipate progress. That's where I want to go today. So expectation is a cognitive tool. Most people treat expectation as emotional, something you either feel or don't. But expectation is neurological. Your brain constantly scans your environment for what it expects to find. If you expect rejection, your brain's going to notice rejection. If you expect stress, your brain's going to notice stress. If you expect difficulty, your brain's going to highlight difficulty. That's how your brain works. This isn't magic. Your brain scans for what it expects. But if you expect opportunity and growth and movement, your brain begins to scan for that instead. It's not magic, it's pattern recognition. Your nervous system wants efficiency. It filters reality according to expectations. So the question becomes, what are you training your brain to look for? What are you training your brain to look for? Are you preparing for spring or bracing for another winter? Are you preparing for the possibility of growth and opportunity and expectation? Or are you just preparing for another, it's not going to be good enough, I'm not going to be good enough, I'm not going to be able to do it? Wishful thinking. Let's be honest here. Many high-functioning adults develop what is a protective pessimism. It sounds like this. I won't get my hopes up. It probably won't work. Let's just assume it won't happen. I don't want to be disappointed. This mindset feels protective. It feels like it's a protective thing, but in reality, it's not. It feels safe, but it actually does train the brain and your nervous system to stay guarded, even when growth is available. Here's what protective pessimism does. It reduces emotional risk. It lowers excitement, it dulls enthusiasm, it dampens imagination. And while that may feel stabilizing in the short term, it also prevents you from leaning forward into life. Expectation is forward energy. Pessimism is defensive energy. and spring requires forward energy. And this isn't just some woo-hoo out there thinking. There's actually some science to this. There's actually some groundedness and research in this. When you anticipate something positive, your brain releases dopamine. Not just when the reward arrives, but while anticipating it. That means hope itself energizes you. Expectation activates motivation. It increases resilience. It improves problem solving. It enhances persistence. It raises emotional endurance. You don't need results to feel momentum. You need expectation. And many adults actually just starve themselves of dopamine by expecting nothing good. Imagine walking into each day scanning for possibility instead of threat. When you do that, your posture changes, your tone changes, your choices change. Expectation becomes fuel. And that's where we want to go. We want to fuel ourselves, shifting from survival to anticipation. If winter was about survival, which it is, it's about survival. It's about getting through, enduring the cold and the freezing. Spring is about anticipation. Survival mindsets, they protect us, but they sound like, let's just get through the day. Don't make mistakes. Keep your head down. Avoid problems. That's a survival mindset. You ever find yourself feeling that way or thinking that way? Where it's just like, I'm just going to get through the day. I'm just going to survive. Well, sometimes we need to survive. And sometimes survival is what we require. But most of the time, survival is not going to benefit us. We will survive. We will survive, but we're not going to grow. When we shift our mindset to an anticipation mindset, then we start to sound like, what could go right today? What could I do right today? What might be a positive thing? Where might opportunity show up? What small growth can I create? What's trying to open up my life? Notice the difference. One braces for the doldrum. One braces for the onslaught. The other leans forward. One shrinks in, the other expands. And anticipation is how we do that. Now, that does not mean naivete. It means readiness. It means we prepare our nervous systems to receive growth. That's what anticipation does. It's not about finding some kind of naive, wishful thinking. No. It's more than that. It's more than that. So we want to train our inner vision to anticipate rather than to survive. So let's bring this down into some practical things here. 3 ways to train expectation intentionally. Replace the question, what if I fail, to what if it works? See, your brain needs a new script. Every time you catch a negative forecast, replace it with a balanced possibility. What if this fails? What if I don't get it right? What if I do? Not fantasy. Okay, I don't want to live us into fantasy. I don't want to be, I don't want to go into some place that is Pollyannic. No, but possibility. Because the possibility of success is just as high as the possibility of failure. But if we're bracing to survive, then we're going to focus on the failure, because the failure, we're going to prepare for what happens when it fails. Well, again, if your brain, wanting to be effective, is writing a script to prepare for failure, failure is going to happen. And even when success happens, it becomes a form of failure. Well, it wasn't as good as it could have been. It was good, but it wasn't as good as. So there's still that failure script, that survival script. You do something good and someone compliments you. You're like, yeah, it was okay. No, accept the compliment. We want to rewrite our internal expectation, our internal vision. That's what we want to do. And we do that by replacing those negative forecasts with a balanced possibility. It could fail, but it could succeed. And here's what, if it fails, well, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to lose everything. I might lose a little bit. I might, have to be joked around with a little bit or what have you. But most of the time, what we fear failing is not going to have an ontological shift in our identity. We'll overcome it. And so when we are capable of replacing that inner vision with a script of balanced possibility, we can hold on to the possibility that it may fail. But we also need to ask the question, what if it works? What if I succeed in this? Your brain needs a new script. And that's how we rewrite into anticipation. Your brain needs a new script. So replace that what if I fail to what if it works. Another way to retrain our brain in that inner vision daily is to create a spring vision statement. Do you have a vision statement? I think everybody should have a vision statement, a vision for their life. You know, if we're not directed, if we don't have a vision statement, we're just kind of like strolling along, doing whatever, limping through, blah, 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 get through the day, have my cocktail, go to bed, get up tomorrow and do it again. That is survival. Okay. And some days we need to do that because they can be overwhelming. But what is our vision for life? What is your vision for spring? Here we are in winter. The ground hasn't started blooming yet, and the snow is still out there and it's still cold. It was really cold this morning when I, came into the microphone. But spring is coming. And so when it shows up, what is the vision? So what's your vision statement for spring? Maybe it's time to sit down and think about it. Write a short paragraph describing who you're becoming, what you're stepping into, how you want to feel, where you're building or what you're building. You see, when we can write this down, when we can put it out there and we read it daily, repetition builds belief. Our brain, if we read something over and over, our brain is going to start looking for it. It's the neurology of how our brain works. Our brain is going to start looking for what we are looking for. And if we have a spring vision statement, if we have a spring direction, who do I want to become? Then our brain will start looking for that thing. If we read it daily, then what we do is we start to retrain our brain for something bigger, something more important, something more powerful. So create a spring vision statement for yourself. If you work with ChatGPT or anything of that nature, you can begin there. I want to write a spring vision statement and see what it says. Maybe it works, maybe it isn't, but go somewhere. Look, I don't believe that we should pawn off everything to something else, but when we don't do anything, we don't get anything. So maybe that's where you want to start. Or I know Google has, their own AI program. There's a lot of AI programs out there. If you don't know where to start there. Start there. What's a spring vision statement? What's a spring vision statement for me? Again, you can hone this and you can make it your own. I'm not saying that you should let someone else write your vision statement, but if you need a place to start, that's a good place to start. It's a good tool to use. Then begin to notice evidence of movement. We like to see the end, okay? We want to look for the conclusion. I want to lose 10 pounds, and I'm going to celebrate when I lose 10 pounds. Well, that's great, but you can also celebrate when you lose 2 pounds. You can also celebrate when you lose a pound. Notice movement each day. Identify small signs of progress. Small signs of progress start to build momentum. Momentum doesn't appear suddenly. It accumulates quietly. I've used this direction before. Think about a train. Where I live in this part of the United States, there's a lot of train activity. And trains come through here all the time. I hear them all day. So think about a train. A train doesn't go from 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. It's not a Porsche. It takes time. It takes real time. It takes a lot of energy for that engine to start pulling those cars. And the wheels just begin to turn and they begin to turn and then they turn more and more and more. It takes time for a train to build up momentum. But once a train has built up momentum, it doesn't stop right away. It does not have that capability. That momentum will carry it. Well, when we notice evidence of movement every day, when we notice small signs of progress every day, even if a sign of progress 4 days a week is reading your spring vision statement, that's progress. When we notice small signs of progress, we begin to train our brains to see it. We begin to train our brains to anticipate it and actually yearn for it and actually want it. Momentum accumulates quietly, but we have to pay attention and notice when the momentum is happening, when the momentum is moving forward. So notice the evidence of movement. So important. We also want to reframe disappointment because, in this process, is again, like I said, the healing process is never linear. It's up and down and forward and backward, and there's going to be disappointments and there's going to be growth. But we want to reframe disappointment because disappointment is going to be part of it. We can't undo it, but we can reframe it. What if I expect something and it doesn't happen? That's very real. But here's the perspective of growth. Expectation doesn't guarantee outcome, my friends. It guarantees engagement. It guarantees that you're going to lean in. And engagement is where the change happens. Even if a specific goal shifts, your mindset of anticipation builds resilience, creativity, and adaptability, all of which are important. It keeps you in motion, and motion creates opportunity. Yeah, not everything is going to work out the way we want it to, and maybe it didn't need to work out the way we wanted it to. Maybe what we saw at the end of the journey or at the end of the goal, maybe we saw that from point A, but by the time we got to point C, we realized that the goal is really not what we're looking for. We learn, we grow, we become resilient, we adapt, we're creative. Movement does that. If we don't want to face disappointment, then we don't move. And if we don't move, then nothing happens. Look, disappointment is a part of the movement. It is. And yes, it's very real, because we can strive for something and not reach it. That doesn't mean we failed. That doesn't mean that we're less than. It just means it's a part of this journey that we go on and we grow through. So if we expect something and it doesn't happen, our perspective can shift. Expectation doesn't guarantee outcome, my friends. If it did, then we'd all be in a different place. It guarantees engagement. When you expect something, when you anticipate something, you're engaged in it. And that engagement will then change everything, because even if the specific goal shifts, our mindset of anticipation, which builds resiliency and creativity and adaptability, it keeps us moving. And motion creates opportunity. Motion creates opportunity. That's a huge part. Now, again, I said this before. This is not some kind of fantasy thing. I'm not putting out there this think it into being and it will happen. Fantasies avoid effort, all right? Fantasies avoid effort. If I just sit here and think about losing 20 pounds, that 20 pounds is going to go away. Nope, it's not. That's fantasy thinking. Expectation versus fantasy. Expectation prepares for effort. Fantasy says, something good will happen someday. Expectation says something good is possible and I'm going to participate in it. I have to engage. Expectation requires responsibility. It requires you to show up. It requires aligning habits and behaviors and mindset. Look, spring doesn't just arrive. It emerges from preparation. If we're looking at the world around us, if we're looking at what the world is telling us, what we're saying now is, even though the calendar moves from winter to spring, whether you look at the meteorological calendar, which happens on March 1st, or you look at the lunar calendar, which happens on March 21st, either one, spring has been in the preparation for months. We don't see it, but spring has begun to engage the world for months. It will appear, but it just doesn't show up. It doesn't just show up. It's been working for a while. So when we want to get to the end, when we want to achieve what we're longing for, we have to show up, and we do that through expectation and anticipation. It requires us aligning our habits, our behaviors, and our mindset. Because spring doesn't just arrive, it emerges from preparation. We're not going to arrive. We have to emerge from our own preparation. Same thing. Same idea. So when we look at the world around us, we see the world preparing for spring. If we want to move forward, we have to prepare for that. We have to align ourselves in that. And so that's what I would encourage you to do, my friends. Think about it, look at it, align those questions. Maybe start thinking about that spring vision statement, about what you're preparing for, and notice those small steps, those small growths. Notice those small achievements, because expectation and anticipation can be wonderful. Look, expectation is not about denying difficulty. It's about refusing to assume defeat. Now, this does not mean that we have to push through and ruin ourselves to get to a goal. No, it means that we look for opportunity, growth, creativity, and resiliency. Expectation is what allows us to move forward and engage, and motion creates opportunity. So we want to shift our mindset. We want to shift our mindset from that survival pessimism to the anticipation, the expectation, the possibility. Does it mean that we have to open ourselves? Yeah, it does. Does it mean that we have to be vulnerable? Yeah, it does. But it's worth it. It really, truly, truly, truly is worth it to open ourselves to the possibility of what can be out there. That's what I got for you for today, my friends. I hope it's helpful. I really do. If it is, please share it out there. Put it out there on your social media feeds. I post on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and Facebook. If you follow me or the life coaching on any one of those feeds, you're going to see this. And if you want to reach out to me directly, gracelifecoaching.com is the website. I truly, truly, truly would love to hear from you. I really, really, truly would. At Grace Life Coaching, we want you to be the best you.